Hey everybody, hope everyone's well. It's been a really good week for empty nesters. Starting with Jim Monroe, I saw that email. I was wondering if that par or that birdie counted because he was doing it left-handed, but I guess it does. He got it, and we congratulate you on that, Jim. But I have a couple of announcements to make for this week, so a couple of administrative items first. First off, Sunday, April 18th at 9:45, we will meet in person for Sunday school in B18 again. Let me repeat that because I see some of you looking and saying, what did he just say? So Sunday, the 18th of April at 9:45 a.m., we'll meet live in person in B18 again, and we can go every Sunday. Uh, Danielle Kim was kind enough to get that room available for us. We're starting the 18th, so I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the Sunday school class that was using it. Uh, they basically graciously went to another room. They had it booked through June, and she contacted them, and they were very gracious in opening up that room for us so we could return. I'll work with some of the tech guys over the next few days to try to figure out how we can share that lesson with other people who are unable and cannot attend. And we'll work on the technology and the tactics, logistics of all that, so we can try to make sure everyone gets to share in our return to B18. And Gigi will be bringing the lesson that day, so we can look forward to his lesson as our restart and our refresh, if you will. Another announcement, it's been very hard for the social committee to try and get a event location or a venue. Restaurants aren't open enough yet that they'll let large groups in. City parks, they're not even opening their pavilions yet. So you're kind of left on your own to try and figure something out. And I didn't feel like meeting in the church parking lot again. So I have reserved on Saturday, the 24th, at around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, a courtyard at First United Methodist Church in Allen. With the remodeling and reconstruction that finished last year, there's a big, beautiful open courtyard. It has about half a dozen chairs with tables and umbrellas. There are a number of benches. It's a beautiful place with trees and lots of landscaping. We'll have the whole place to ourselves. We have easy access to restrooms right inside. There's also a prayer labyrinth inside. If anybody wants to go and experience the prayer labyrinth, they're welcome to do that as well. Easy parking on the east side of the church, and I'll send an email out about instructions on how to get there and a little bit more about it, and I'll work with the social committee on getting that done. So those are two things that I'm really looking forward to, are getting back together in person and having a gathering that we can celebrate that right after that. I have Gigi to thank for this lesson today. He and I were exchanging emails after his last lesson, and I remembered in his lesson he talked about going for a walk, and he stopped to rest on the concrete barrier around a light pole, if you will. I wouldn't fit on one of those. Gigi can. He's a little more slender than I am. So anyway, he had an elderly lady approach him and walk up to him who was out for her daily walk. And they had a great conversation. And I emailed him back and I told him some good things that had happened to me that particular week. And he responded back and said, Jim, I think you ought to share those with the class. Well, I responded back and said, sure, go ahead and use those in the lesson. And he responded back and said, Jim, I meant you share them. So I'll do that later today, but it got me thinking because I hadn't come up with a topic yet for this particular lesson. And I thought, Gigi had a God moment. God put him and that lady in position or in place together so they could have that conversation and get to know each other. And I thought God moments would probably make a pretty good lesson. We haven't talked about God moments much except to share sometimes that we've experienced them or we've seen them happening. I think when Jim Gallman teaches, the videos he shows are definitely God moments happening that are caught on video and talked about on video. So I want to talk about God moments today. I want to read a scripture first, Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, We've been called according to his purpose. So what is a God moment? I think we all kind of think we know what they are, but let me just go over some definitions of her a little bit. A God moment's that personal encounter that we experience when God's purpose, his presence, and love is revealed to us. Sometimes it may present itself through a message. Could be a song, could be a prayer that we hear. When something happens in our lives, we can't really explain it. That's a God moment. Even if it's just for a second, we know something greater than ourselves has just happened and we've experienced it. It can be a peace that we feel at times and washes over us in difficult times, like a burden being lifted. It can be an answer that we've been searching for a long, long time, and it suddenly is found. It can be a prayer that is answered, a specific prayer that we've been asking God to help us about, and it is answered. Sometimes we don't recognize God moments right away. I know that's been my experience. I've seen good things happen, or I've had someone tell me about good things that have happened to them. And I realize afterwards, as I think about it, that was a God moment. It wasn't coincidence. God put those things together for either my purpose or for the purpose of someone else. We call them God moments because they are of God. God is in them. He created them. Even if we don't recognize them right away, we do see God in our life, and time seems to stop for a little while. It seems like we're observing things in slow motion. And it's a profound moment for us. When God moments happens, it's important for us to share them. I got to thinking about this a little bit more. We're very open to sharing joys and concerns with each other in the class. We know that our joys, we celebrate with each other. We thank God for those joys. We're very grateful. We share our concerns. We want prayers. We need prayers, not just for ourselves and our lives, but for those that we may want to pray for. But do we really share our God moments the way that we should? I know the teachers all share God moments in their lessons periodically. Gigi, I can think of the most. He usually has a God moment in just about every lesson that he shares. He has great stories about things and events in his life that I classify as God moments. So we need to share those moments. God moments being shared lift each other up. They give us hope. They give us confidence. It's another way that we can lift our spirits as a community and as a class. So I hope that we are more open to sharing God moments. I know I will be. I find that I'm reluctant to share my God moments. And when I dig deep and try to figure out why, it's because I fear that when I'm talking about a God moment, people may confuse it and think I'm talking about me, and I'm not the one that's the major part of the story. It's about God. And I don't want people to misinterpret that. And when I tell you my God story later today, I hope you'll keep that in mind. I'm not wanting to be the one that's the focus of the attention of the story. It's about God and the things that he is doing. And that's why I'm reluctant to share God moments that happen with me with someone else. But I'm going to get over that. And I hope y'all do too. I hope that we can share God moments with each other more often. I'm anxious for us to get back to class so that we can use those God moments as a class to lift each other up, give each other hope, give each other confidence. God promises that he's with us at all times. He's constantly acting in our lives on our behalf. The neat thing about a God moment is that we notice where God is acting and we can identify it as such. Again, we know it's not coincidence. We know that God is taking action on our behalf, and we're able to see that and we're able to feel that. We know his presence is there for that particular moment. I've developed a new sensitivity about looking for God moments since putting this lesson together, and I'm really enjoying it. I really am. I'm not just looking for God moments for me anymore. I'm watching other people. I see people sometimes just interacting and talking about good things that have happened to them, and it's joyful to see that. I see kindnesses for each other as people are interacting. And I'm starting to see that more as a God moment. God put kindness out there, and I see people acting in kindness and helping each other. I see people working in charities. Those are God moments. They're giving of themselves to someone else. I also see people who are open to people coming into their path so they can help them. That's a God moment. And we need to be open to people coming in our path that we may be able to help. We all have gifts. God uses those gifts for his purpose and for helping other people. So we must be open to being noticeable or notice people that come into our lives that may need our help. Just like a God moment can be when people come into our lives that help us and God places them there. We are beyond blessed to have a caring and loving God who is constantly at work in our lives on our behalf. So take a few moments and appreciate what God does for us each day and his action in our lives. I know all of you have God moments, and after this lesson today, I hope you'll sit and think about those for a minute and kind of look where God was at those particular times in your life and what he was doing, how things came together and how he put those things together for you. I'll take a moment and share my particular God moment, and there's actually a few of them, so it's going to be a little bit of a story. Y'all all know that Sandy and I are caregivers for my sister and her husband. There's a lot of pressure with that, more pressure than we may have anticipated, but God helps us every day through that. Combined with work, combined with the pressures of caregiving, trying to get their last will and testaments in order, trying to get their last wishes known and get those in order. Just a lot of things were on my plate a few weeks ago, and I was stressing over it. I was stressing so much I started losing weight. That's a lot of stress for me, I can guarantee you, to not be eating right. I was making mistakes at work that I never make before. I could tell my mind was totally preoccupied with things so much that I couldn't focus when I needed to be focused. I realized I needed to go look for some answers, and I dug up an old lesson that was from January of this year. And I had used Dr. Jim Denison, where he talked about why pray when God already knows what we need and what we want. And the answer was very direct and very simple. We pray because we have a relationship with God and we continue building on that. Even though God knows what we want and need, prayer opens us up to being able to receive his grace, his mercy, and his goodness for us. Confession of what we need even opens us up more for what we need from him and want from him, and we position him to be able to give those things to us. But we'll recognize them easier because we've confessed them and we know what to look for now when he answers those. So I thought, wow, I hadn't prayed for a while. It's been a few days. I've left God out of my life for a while. That's not like me. The stress had gotten so much that I'd given into it, and I had forgotten to tell God what my troubles are. And quite frankly, I had forgotten to ask him for help. So I had to fix that, and I did. My prayer was an apology. I told God I was very sorry that I hadn't checked in for a while. I missed the mark. I apologized for not letting him handle the things in my life that were troubling me. And I confessed directly to him that I needed help in some specific areas. And then I let him have those. It felt like a burden was lifted. I don't know if I felt as good as Jim Monroe did when he sucked that putt, but it was a feeling of euphoria. I really felt good. I felt like that I didn't need to worry about those things because I had faith and confidence that God would be there when I needed things from him. Move forward a little bit. A young lady named April Kwan came in my office at work one day, and we talked a little bit of business, and I remembered that she is a notary public. And I'd been working on my sister and brother-in-law's last will and testaments. And I asked her, I said, would you be able to notarize those? And she said, oh, absolutely, Jim. I'll be glad to do that. I'd like to meet Charlotte and Roger anyway. So now come to the following Thursday. Charlotte Normie has chemo on Thursday, but this particular Thursday, She was skipping chemo, as she does about every third or fourth week, so her body can recover and her blood levels can get back where they can measure them correctly. So she only had labs and appointments. So right after the appointment, we all took off to the church, went to my office. April was kind enough to meet us there. She started going through the process of initials and signatures and the paperwork that needs to be done. The administrative assistant for the pastors came in the office. Her name's Lisa Romans, and she got to meet Charlotte and Roger. She came there on business, but she was very happy to meet them. She told Charlotte and Roger how much that she had been praying for them and how much other people in the church had been praying for them as well. And of course, they were very appreciative and they were very glad they got to meet her. Just about the time they were finishing up the signatures, I told April, I think we need witnesses for this, don't we? And she said, yes, but I'll take care of that for you, Jim. I think everybody here knows me well enough that if I witness their signatures, I can go to some people here on staff and they'll be glad to sign as witnesses. Just then, two people came in the office. Well, guess who it was? It was the senior pastor, Mary Beth Hardesty Crouch, and it was also our associate pastor, Jessica Wright. They were very happy and glad to be there and said, Lisa said Charlotte was here. We need to meet Charlotte. So they came in and they met Charlotte and Roger. They reinforced what Lisa had said about so many people praying for them in the church. Charlotte went over and she was ecstatic and she opened her big black puffy coat to show them her bright red t-shirt with white letters that said, I refuse to die today. They got a kick out of that. Now me, being the business person, I thought, two witnesses. God, you are awesome. You sent a senior pastor and an associate pastor to be witnesses for their last will and testaments. So when I get to probate court, I'm going to show wills that were signed by people with Reverend in front of their name. Can any of you do that? I can. And I thought, wow, what an awesome moment God put together. He put all the people in place for me that I had been worrying about. Had to pause for a moment. Amber alert. Sorry for the interruption. I will silence my phone so that doesn't happen again. And I hope the person with the Amber alert has good luck and God helps them. Okay, that wraps up that particular God moment. But I still had things that I want to deal with. So when Sandy and I got home that day, I decided let's go on to the funeral home and let's try to take care of Charlotte's last wishes, if you will, and get that out of the way. That's something that's going to be very, very difficult for us to do. I chose Tarentine Jackson Memorial here in McKinney. I kept leaning toward them for some reason, and I finally realized maybe God's pulling me there, so that's probably where we need to go. We pulled into the parking lot off the highway, and you could tell there was a funeral going on because there were a lot of cars lined up ready for a funeral procession. But there was a man, of course, he was dressed like the Undertaker in his black suit and a long black winter coat. And he waved, and he came over to our truck. I rolled the window down, and he said, how can I help y'all? And I said, we're here to talk about last wishes for my sister, and specifically, I need to know about cremation services. And he said, we can help you with that. Meet us at the south door. I'll be there to meet you, and I'll greet you there, and we'll get it taken care of. So we parked, we went in, and he met us, and we went into a small room. Of course, he brought lots of notebooks, lots of brochures, and some paperwork. And we introduced ourselves, and he said, my name is Butch Irby, R-B-Y. Now, me being the guy that I am, I immediately cracked back and said, wow, I went to school with a guy named Butch. He was my best friend for all the years we went to school together. He had a brother named Cotton because he was albino since birth, and he had white hair. And I said, quite a family, though. They were good people, and I really enjoyed Butch. He said, well, where are you from, Jim? And I said, well, I'm from Rawls, Texas. My wife's from Florida. He put his pen down, and he leaned back in his chair, and he said, Sandy, do you know a Raymond Irby and his family? And she did not, but he said, that's my uncle. Him and his family lived in Florida for years and years. And I said, well, then where are you from, Butch? And he said, Turkey, Texas. Well, now I know a lot of y'all are going, Turkey, Texas. Where in the heck is Turkey, Texas? Well, I'll make it easy for you. You drive east from Florida about 30 miles, you get to Matador. Matador, you turn north, and you go to Turkey about 20 miles up the road. And if you keep going north, you get to Clarendon. You turn east on a farm to market road and you get to Memphis. Memphis, as you all know, is on the highway between Wichita Falls and Amarillo. Used to go there all the time to see my aunt and uncle. So we've been through Turkey a lot. Oh, and when you stop in Matador, stop at Bob's Oil Well. Bob Robertson had a gas station there and he wanted more attention. So he had this huge oil derrick brought in and put up with lights all over it. And you could stop there and get all kinds of refreshments. I especially like the peanuts and the Coke, and I also like the peanut patties. But he had a building to the side, and for 50 cents, you could go see a snake farm. That was a treat as a little kid. So, Turkey, Texas, there's a guy that just lives down the road from where Sandy and I grew up. And we sat and talked for quite a while about all those memories about Bob's Oil Well and about things around that particular area and about our families. So we suddenly had a relationship going. It made it so easy to go through the rest of that meeting, talking about cremation services, talking about what we wanted, what Charlotte wanted, and getting those written down and documented on paper. Butch was so helpful. And as Sandy and I walked out, I thought, wow, God, you put the right person in the right place at the right time just for me. And that was one of the things that I had given him and let go for him, and he responded in a great way. So those were God moments that I'll share with you. And in return, I expect to hear some of y'all's God moments, whether you call me or email me or wait until I see you in class. When I was looking for other God moments, I found a great story, and it's probably going to make my lesson run a little long, simply because it takes 15 minutes to read it. So what I'm going to do is read it anyway, because there's so many moments in it, and it's so impactful, I thought, that I think that you need to hear it because I needed to hear it, and I've read it over and over. It's called The Story Behind My Eye Patch. Any of you that watch Home and Garden TV, you may have seen a show called Picture to Fabulous. It's in Bentonville, Arkansas. There's a young couple by the name of Dave and Jenny Mars. They had a business there, renovating and remodeling homes. It became a TV show. There's two carpenters that work on it. One is a man named Chase Looney and his father. And his father is not just a carpenter, he is a woodsman deluxe. If you need a special cabinet built, piece of furniture, shelving, whatever, he's the man for the job. Chase, as it turns out, is also a good experienced carpenter. As you'll see, he does other things as well. But the early episode of the pilot, he's just an ordinary guy. As I started noticing in other episodes, he's wearing an eye patch on his left eye. Well, me being curious, I wanted to know, what's that eye patch for? What happened to him? So that's what this story is about. So I'm going to read it to you. While watching Picture to Fabulous, I'm sure viewers have wondered about my leather eye patch. I'm just ruggedly handsome and feel like the patch adds to that look. He says, I kid, I kid. The story behind my eye patch is much more than a bold fashion statement. It's necessary. I lost my eye in a tragic accident days after filming the pilot episode of the show. I now often joke about being a guy with one eye and encourage others to joke with me. Why? Because as unnatural as it sounds, I am thankful for the beautiful lesson and message God sent me through this tragic accident. It was planned for me to be the guy with one eye. This story isn't easy to share. This story isn't easy to hear. But this story is a testimony that when you are lost, when you are broken, when you don't see the gifts God has laid out in front of you, God in his loving, beautiful way will show you. July 4th, 2017 was the day God intervened and took my eye so I could see. Think of that for a moment. July 4th, 2017 was the day God intervened and took my eye so that I can see. God moments can be tragic at times, but they're still God moments. And he looked at this as a great God moment in his life. It taught him how to see. Like most American families, we had our perfect Independence Day planned out. family, food on the grill, a pool that was open and inviting, and the grand finale was a fireworks display, so large that bald eagles and the Statue of Liberty and Uncle Sam himself would give a standing salute. I have the three greatest jobs in the world: a father, a firefighter, and a carpenter. The week before this patriotic night, I was stressed to my limit. Dave Mars and I were wrapping up a large renovation for the pilot of the show. I had two-time pressing furniture projects to build, and every third day I worked 24-hour shifts on the fire department. This stress reflected in my mood, and at the time I was ignorant enough to bring that home to my nearly perfect wife and children. I was lazy in my home life and neglecting my wife and kids. I clearly remember the morning of the 4th, my wife and I had an argument. She was trying to remind me that family came first and all stress from work had to be left at the doorstep. Our other time together was precious, and she was tired of spending it trying to get my head out of stress at work, constant emails and phone calls to put out fires on the job site. We love each other fiercely, but that day, like feuding siblings, we needed to be in our own corners. We agreed to revisit this argument at a better time and enjoy the holiday together as a family. As the sun began to set, we started to set up the fun for the night. My brother-in-law and I carefully set up the fireworks in the order we wanted them to create the best possible show. My brother-in-law didn't just share an affinity for exploding things on the 4th of July. He also worked on the fire department with me. We were friends as kids, and just so happens I fell in love with his beautiful and funny older sister. We were excited, and just before it was time to start the show, I remember looking back at the pool house and lawn, overcome with excitement at all the faces of friends and family about to enjoy our massive celebration of freedom. The three most important faces of the 50-plus people that were there were my son Landon, my baby girl Lucy, and my beautiful wife Chelsea, who, not very happy with me that day, still shows the love she has for me in her eyes. Looking back, I realized God was doing the same thing, setting up something that was going to be just for me. Looking down, excited for what He is about to show me, something He worked hard on and would change my life forever, something that would celebrate my own personal freedom. I often imagine us both saying at the same time, "Let's start the show." Before the rain and storms hit, we decided to light the large 3-inch mortars. For those unaware, this is a 3-inch ball of flaming American glory that blasts out of a small tube-like cannon about 80 miles an hour, roughly 210 feet in the air. I played this over and over a million times in my head, and the clearest memory I can gather in that fog was that after lighting the 4th mortar in a rush to beat the rain, I quickly lit the 5th mortar. I believe the concussion from the 4th tube exploding tipped the 5th tube over after I had just lit it. Here's where God has placed me. He needs me here in this exact moment, in this exact position, making this mistake. Standing directly in front of that mortar that had just tipped over, God started the show. When the explosion went off, I remember everything stopped. There was a deafening boom, a burst of light, and in the chaos of that moment, everything around me slowed down. It was quiet, it was calm, and through the fog and smoke, everything became clear. I could see everyone enjoying the show. I could see my brother-in-law carrying a torch to light the next mortar. I could see everything, but I felt nothing. I fell to my knees and then slowly to my stomach. This is when the puzzle came together and I realized what had just happened. I reached up and touched my face. I could feel the trauma, and pulling back my hand, I saw it covered in blood. I remember the feeling and fear of blood rushing down my face and into my airways, slowly cutting off my ability to breathe. See, here's the funny thing about God. Through your life, He gives you breadcrumbs, small breadcrumbs that help you navigate the path He's laid out for you. You don't know the power of these breadcrumbs until the day He shows you why they were placed there at that moment. He holds your hand in this way. These breadcrumbs are tools that at any time you may not need or appreciate. But the day will come when you're laying face down, slowly choking on your own blood, people around you oblivious to what is going on, that you'll reach down for that breadcrumb. All the years spent in the back of an ambulance working to help others, tired long nights, seeing trauma, constantly applying what I know as a firefighter to help save others. Those years of knowledge, that breadcrumb was about to save my life. I remember telling myself, Chase, you have an extreme trauma to your face and airway. You need to roll over to keep the blood from choking you. And most important, you need to keep calm and control your heart rate. The first person to get to me was my brother-in-law, Jesse. He was a paramedic, as I mentioned, and was well prepared with his own breadcrumbs. He yelled for someone to call 911 and for the adults to take the children away. As he and I talked about what I knew was happening inside me, he assessed my injuries. My wife came running up. This is when time stopped again. Y'all may want to go get some Kleenex here. I know I have some standing by. I will for the rest of our lives remember this moment. My wife got down on her stomach and she laid next to me. I remember this is the woman who, although loved me more than anything, had not wanted to say a word to me the entire night after our fight. I remember my wife and I locking eyes, and we were both overcome with emotion. I grabbed her hand and looked at her face as we both laid in the wet grass. Not once did our eyes look away. She kept telling me, "It's okay, I'm here." And I kept trying to tell her how sorry I was. This moment was the closest I have ever felt with my wife. The chaos all around us stood still, and it was just her and I. This moment in my memory lasted forever. She was wrapped in amber light, and though at the time I did not know it, and the trauma showing that glow, I thought this was going to be the most beautiful thing I saw before I left the earth. No one else existed. It was just her and I wrapped in a glowing light. I'm sorry, I'll try to read a little better now. We were both shocked out of the moment when the ambulance arrived. The medics were my family. They were my friends. We had worked countless hours together at the fire department. They loaded me as quickly as possible and told me they were going to put me to sleep so they could stick a tube down and clear my airway. That's the last memory I have of that night. I arrived at the hospital in Bentonville. I was met by doctors and nurses I've worked with for years. We were friends, and to them I was one of their own. As they prepped me in the trauma room and got word had gotten to our rescue community, and around midnight people began to show up. Bentonville's a special place like that. We love each other and we show up for each other. It was a holiday evening. It was a time to take a break and enjoy your family, and without hesitation, some of Bentonville's finest started to fill the halls of Northwest Medical Center. My brothers from C-Shift were there. My family, the mayor and other officials from Bentonville were there. Firefighters from neighboring departments, and of course Dave Mars had gathered to show support and pray over me. Although I didn't get to see the outpour of love and community, I was grateful for the support that night. It was decided I needed to be airlifted to Springfield, Missouri. The storms made this impossible, so my brother-in-law and other firefighters volunteered to rush me by ambulance to Springfield, Missouri. My wife and family were told by the doctors of this plan and told to be prepared I might not make it to the hospital. In Springfield, I was rushed into surgery. My family and friends arrived and prayed through 8 hours of surgery. I won't share in detail what exactly needed to be done in attempts to save my eye and left side of my face, but God placed me in skilled hands. The optical surgeon, plastic surgeon, and entire medical team worked tirelessly to save my eye. When I woke, it was the following morning. I was wheeled bandaged into recovery, where my wife grabbed my hand and told me she was there. The swelling and trauma were immense, and it took a bit for me to be able to open my right eye and see my wife, my mother, and my father. That room was full of love, full of what was important. That room was a breadcrumb. The following days were full of questions without answers, full of unknowns, full of what ifs. There was a lot of process, but in it all, I felt at peace, a peace that I had been given a second chance. I was surrounded by friends and loved ones. There were three visitors aside from family that stuck out to me. The first was Matt Thompson. He was someone I worked with every third day. We were partners on the ambulance and experienced the absolute worst and best of times. If we went into a burning building, we knew if something went wrong, we would come out together. We had full trust in each other. His first words when he saw me were, "I hate you because you made me cry and I don't do that. And second, if you ever need anything, I'll be there for you." He visited and called me almost every day during my recovery. The next visitors were Dave and Jenny Mars. They came the following morning and brought my wife essentials so that she would not have to leave my side. They joked with me and told me whatever happens, I have nothing to worry about. I told them, I don't think I have the face for TV anymore. Through tears and laughter, they reassured me I never had the face for TV anyway. Dave also let me know no matter what happens, he would always take care of me and my family. He has never backed out on that promise. The third visitors were the last to arrive, but the most important. My wife and I knew that this situation should be handled delicately, and we were venturing uncharted waters of our journey of parenthood. In this moment, I was not dad. I was not strong. I looked different, and the hospital was full of scary unknowns. I needed my children, but I didn't want to scare my children. I will never underestimate my kids' strength and resilience again. They did not need their dad to look the same. They didn't need their dad to stand up and throw them in the air. They didn't need their dad to take care of them. My children simply needed to see their father, to quietly sit near him, and to do what they did every evening, watch cartoons. That's a breadcrumb that will get me through the next year. The following days in the hospital, I was given the news that I lost my eye, that it would have to be removed, that I might not have movement on the left side of my face, and the scarring would be permanent. I was depressed. I lost all my strength and willpower. Then the morning I was scheduled to be released, it occurred to me that days earlier, God placed a breadcrumb. I was lying in the wet grass, looking at my wife, and I was telling her goodbye. That amber lit breadcrumb helped me realize how lucky I am, that I have a second chance to take advantage of every day given, and that I would no longer feel sorry for my loss, but thankful for everything that I've gained. I've had 2 years to heal. I've retired from the Bentonville Fire Department to spend more time with my family. I've made every day count. I've grown closer to God and found peace in trusting Him and His journey He has placed on me. I got to join Dave and Jenny Mars and prove that I do have a face for TV and appear in the new HGTV show Picture to Fabulous. I joined Matt Thompson, who is now the fire chief in Centerton, and I've circled back to the job I love, the job that helped save my life. And most importantly, I'm coming home every night to a family and leaving whatever stress I have at the doorstep because I've got cartoons to watch with my three favorite people. No stress in the world could get in the way of that. Again, long story, but I wanted you to hear it. A very emotional story. You know, in the Lenten devotionals that I shared with y'all, there was a portion at the end called Making It Personal. And I want to borrow a little bit of that today because let's get back to God moments for a little bit and make it personal on God moments in our lives. So what can we do? We can pray actively. We need to keep our relationship with God going daily. We need to have faith. Believe that God is not just there for us, but He's acting on our behalf, and He'll be there for us when we need it. He's going to put people in our lives that we need in our lives. He's going to put us in front of other people that need us in their lives as well. Keep working on your personal relationship with God. That's a never-ending. It's a study. all the time. Let God work through you. Be patient. Be willing to see those who need you. You have gifts to share with them. Share them. It's what God wants you to do. Make a very conscious effort to notice how and when God works in your life in obvious and subtle ways. And as I said before, please be willing to share those. I found a closing prayer that I thought appropriate. It's from Jacob Astley, who lived from 1579 to 1652. Bow your heads as I read this prayer for us, please. Lord, help me realize that you will be speaking to me through the events of the day, through people, through things, and through all creation. Give me ears, eyes, and heart to perceive you, however veiled your presence may be. Give me insight to see through the exterior of things to the interior truth. Give me your spirit of discernment. Oh Lord, you know how busy I must be this day. If I forget you, please do not forget me. Amen. I've enjoyed this lesson because I learned so much from it, as I think a lot of the other teachers learn from the lessons that they provide the class as well. I know I had a hard time reading that emotional story, so if you didn't hear it correctly or thought you might have missed part of it, I have copies of it. Just let me know you need it, and I'll be glad to forward it to you by email, and you can read it for yourself and share it with others if you want to. Again, it's a great week for the empty nesters because we're going to be able to celebrate getting back together in person on April the 18th. That's going to be a wonderful day. I'm looking so forward to it. So until I see y'all there, I hope y'all stay safe, continue praying fervently, and work on your relationship with God, and go create a God moment. He wants you to be involved. Amen.